Hi friend, Omar here. Why does everything feel so bland now? I remember when I was younger. After a day of school, I'd be waiting for the bus so I could go back home. I'd check my time on my Sony Ericsson K610i in red that I totally did not forget in a pair of pants and one time found in the washing machine, swirling around in a pair of pants. What are those key hanger thingies you could put on your phones back in the day? Remember those? The little thingies you could put on the corner? I had a crazy frog one that would turn red and blink whenever somebody would call the phone. And so we called the phone to try and find the phone, and I saw something red spinning in the washer. So yeah, definitely a good memory. So, I'm finally home. I boot up my silver PlayStation 2 with way too much memory, an entire 32 megabytes, dude. I play a game that definitely was not meant for my age. And in spite of that, somehow life was just good. And everything was exciting. You had all these new innovations. You had all these new things that came out that you were actually excited for. And games were big enough to take you some time to finish, but also small enough so you could do that without finding yourself 6 feet under. Games just felt more gamey, When I was 12, my parents took me to this mall that we used to go to like every Saturday, right? It was a nice experience. We used to go there. I always used to hang out around the game store just to see what games they had. And at the time, I was at my cousin's place like a couple of days before going there. He had this really cool game, and that game was Bully, Scholarship Edition, or Canis Canem Edit, as it was also called in certain regions. And basically, the whole premise of the game is that you are a school bully. And as someone who got bullied for all of grade school and pretty much all of high school, you can see how this game would appeal to me. The game was convenient for me in that sense. And so we went to the store. This guy that worked at the store thought, oh no, you know what? I don't want kids who are way too young for this game to actually get to play this game. I need to uphold the law. We walk up to him and he's like, yeah, so this is an 18 plus, just by the way. I think it was an 18 plus. And my dad goes, 18 plus, we're not getting that. So we didn't get the game. But you have to understand, all I could think about was this game. And so every time I went to my cousin's place after that, that game is all I played. And even to this day, it's one of my favorite games. And I think part of that is probably just like the nostalgia that I get from it. You know what I mean? Like, it made me feel a certain type of way. And so therefore the game just means a lot to me, even though it might not objectively be an amazing game. Even though objectively, it's actually one of the best games ever made. And I really wish we'd see a sequel of that. Like maybe, I don't know, Bully in University or something, where you have to get your professor to confess to something on a Zoom call, or he gets fired or something. I don't know. It was the same thing for like GTA San Andreas. I've never finished the campaign mode of GTA San Andreas, right? Never happened. And I've played that game a million times. It never happened. And you know what? It probably never will. It took me like 10 years to finish the story mode of GTA 5. And I've played that game since it came out, because there is enough stuff to do for you outside of the story mode to make you enjoy the game and not feel like you're missing out on stuff. Now, for me at least, it feels like certain games just rely on the online version of the games and just rely on microtransactions and making more money and even more, even though you might not even be enjoying the game. I'm looking at you, FC 26. I'm looking at you, NBA 2K26. I'm looking at you, random game that will not be named. And I get it, right? I get it. I get that me sitting here and saying this in my chair with my nice new coffee neon sign behind me. I hope you like it, by the way. Like, here's the thing, right? Just so you know, because I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, why does he have a coffee sign and it's not turned on? What's the point? Well, if I turn it on, it's a flashbang. So I'm gonna just keep it off like this, and then, it is what it is. If you have any like cinematography ideas for how I can fix this, please let me know. But I don't see it happening. And also, this is Steve. So now we've got two main characters aside from me. And that's besides the point, and now back to the rest of the video. I understand that me sitting here and saying this could come across as me just being an overthinker and making a big deal out of it. And for both those points, I'm gonna have to agree. Those games meant something. There was a certain feeling to coming home and turning on your PlayStation and playing this game for like 3-4 hours, right? And you could just kind of get absorbed into this whole world, either different or similar to the world you were living in. But there was just something about it that felt different. There was something about it that made you want to stay and spend hours and hours and hours on a game. You know, it felt like in some aspects, it felt like you almost had a second life in those games, right? Despite all of that, it still felt manageable. It didn't feel overwhelming. It didn't feel like, you know, I have to do what to complete the first mission in a game. It just didn't feel that heavy. And now, at least for me, games just feel too big. Like, I got Cyberpunk when it first came out. Now, granted, when I got Cyberpunk, the game sucked. But at the same time, the PC I had also kind of sucked. And so I couldn't really play much of the game without it lagging on low resolution, low everything, right? So I didn't really get to enjoy a lot of the work that truly went into the game and only the storyline. And I remember I got to a certain point and the game had just been lagging so much I gave up, and then I revisited it 10 years later and I was like, well, why not just start a new campaign? Because now I have a new PC and the game's better, whatever, right? But again, the game feels too big, man. I don't know I don't know how far into the story mode I am. I don't know if I can do anything else aside from the story mode. And sure, I could just ask ChatGPT, or the version that I made of ChatGPT at my home that doesn't send my info to OpenAI, but I don't want to do that. I would love for that to sort of be presented in the game. I'd love for there to feel like there's some sort of progression that sort of makes sense. Far Cry 3, right? I've seen breakdowns of that game, namely from Pyrocynical, and it's a video that I always go back to watch every now and again because it is so good, but it also just shows you the way games were back then, right? Like, the stories were just pretty clear. Like, there was a pretty clear, like, entry point, you know? At this point, if I want to buy a AAA title, in some cases I'm gonna have to go to like a third or fourth installment of a game and I'm already lost. Like, I don't even know what this is about. Like, if I wanted to buy The Witcher 3, I could, and I did. Did I understand anything of that game? Absolutely not, bro. I have no idea what happened in that game, and I never will, because I'm not gonna play it again, even though I have the disc sitting somewhere in the attic. It's not gonna happen, you know? And that's not even touching on, and I don't want to talk about it too much in this video because I don't want this video to be, grrr, I hate big game. Everything is just online based now, man. Every game is PvP or PvE, whether it's on your phone or on your PC or on your PlayStation 5 or whatever. It's all just online. And you'd think, well, you know, that's because they want to sort of bridge the gap between people who live in one end of the world and people who live in another, and you could sort of make new friends and all that. And then I thought about it for 3 more seconds and I realized it's all because they can't make more money off of a game once you bought it unless they introduce elements of the game enticing you to pay more money, or at least incentivizing you to do it, because otherwise your experience with the game will suck and you'll feel like you've lost money, and maybe you'll feel like, well, you know, I've already paid this much money, so let me just succumb to the sunk cost fallacy and just pay more money. You know, and it sucks too, man, because for the longest time, I felt like we had games where you could sort of like, okay, look at it and you go, okay, well, I can enjoy this game in peace, in you know, the peace of my own home. And yeah, sure, there are still some games coming out that give you just offline capability, but most of them are kind of boring or kind of dragging out or kind of dependent on online progression for stuff that you need offline. And for the games that aren't, well, it's just going to be online and you're going to have to pay for stuff that seems like you don't need until you realize that you do. And then it's just a question of how much money you want to pay for something you've already paid for. And it just kind of feels like you're falling into a rabbit hole, because for some games, like the ones released by EA Sports specifically, you'll have to do it all over again next year. And you're gonna do it again next year because there isn't really much of another option for you to play if you're into that sport. And they know that. And they're banking on your wallet knowing that and feeling that as well by the time the game is out, because you're going to pay extra money for things in the game that won't mean shit a month into the game's lifetime. And it just kind of sucks. You know, it just feels like you can't just play casually anymore. And I miss that.
Hey, son, can you help me put WhatsApp on this phone?
Huh? What? No, you can't do that. That's a dumb phone.
Well, but they told me I could. All right, I'll go ask on Facebook or something. Thanks anyway.
All right, man. Give me the hat. Give me the hat. Let's talk about phones. You know what? I'm gonna sound so old saying this, man, but I miss the time where phones actually were creatively made. An innovative phone was actually innovative. Like this phone right here is a Nokia whatever. I don't remember the model name. I think it's like 105 or something. This phone is considered just basic, right? It's a basic phone, but it had the things that you had back then. You had physical tactile buttons for calling, whatever. You had a nice little T9 keyboard that I still miss to this day. You know, they just felt like more creative. Like even having to pick between them felt like a choice, man. Back in the day, we went to the mall. We were at this mall. We were always at this mall. Every week we were at this mall, and we went to this mall. We went there because in part I was supposed to get a new phone. My dad wanted to buy me a new phone. I think it was for like a birthday or something. I don't remember exactly why, but the point is he wanted to buy me a phone. And the phone, I remember at the time I had looked into like different phones, and the one I did find that I liked the most was the Sony Ericsson Walkman Edition W850i. And my goodness, was it just a marvel of innovation. You had the nice Walkman button on it that lit up depending on whether you played music or not. And that button also lit up if you got phone calls. It had a nice slide mechanism that felt so freaking satisfying. The T9 keyboard was a nice matte black that matched with the color. If you got the white version, the keyboard was also in white. And it was just so freaking beautiful. It had small buttons that were specifically tailor-made for the Walkman edition of the phones. And my God, do I miss that sort of innovation. Because when you made a choice like that, right? You made a choice between like a Sony Ericsson at the time, let's say HTC were still kind of popular. So you made a choice between that or like an HTC Titan 2 if you were like a nerd like me. Or like whatever Nokia had going on before they went through their Lumia era. Right? Like there were choices to make because they actually meant something. Like you actually got something different from each phone. Like even this phone would give you something different. I'll give you an example. I am the proud, happy owner of an iPhone, right? Don't ask me why, but I have an iPhone. I also have a Samsung A17. Now this A17 I got because I needed a secondary phone. But when I was choosing between this and the other phones on the market, now keep in mind, this is the model of 2026, right? 2025, 2026, right? They're all the exact same, you know, and even if you look at like the flagship Samsung from this year compared to last year, it's pretty much the exact same. Same thing with the Apple iPhones. Oh, but look, now it's orange and we've changed the little, the little frickin', the frying pan box. It's not a frying pan box. What is it called, man? We've changed the stove design and now it's a box instead. And that's why you need to pay us more money. And also the color is really nice and not a color that we've used for like 10 years. And now we realize that people will pay money just for the color, even though it's the exact same phone. Functionally speaking, are any of these phones really different? Not really, man. Like again, look at all the flagships from last year. It's all the exact same, with the only difference being iOS or Android. And if you look at all the iPhones, they've deliberately made choices to make sure that some of the iPhones don't stack up as well compared to the bigger and better models. But essentially, you're getting the same phone. Same thing with all the Androids. If you look at all the Androids, unless you're looking like at like a nothing phone or whatever they're called now. Oh, look at us. We're so quirky brands, right? If you're not looking at those, you're looking at the exact same thing. It's still going to be a boring rectangle. Oh, now the notches are gone, and oh, now the phone is thinner, because that was a problem. Because why would big tech ever lie to you? You know, and like, again, thinking about some of their phones, like, Blackberries obviously had their own thing going on. Were amazing. They had their own thing going on, right? Sony Xperia, dude. Do you remember Sony Xperia? Sony Xperia was the craziest line of phones that I've seen that actually worked out. Like each of their phones had deliberate choices made. You want a really tiny phone that barely fits the palm of your hand that can do what you want it to. It's going to be a little bit slower. The keyboard that slides out is going to be impossible to type on. But do you want something that's like super small, but only has 3 buttons on the front and a super irresponsive touch design? You could get that. You want a little bigger model? Here you go. You want one that's even bigger? Here you go. You want one with better cameras? Here you go. But it made sense. Like you had phones where you were like, okay, I want this, and this feature. Boom, there's your phone. I want this, there's your phone. But now it's like, I want this phone that can do this and this and this. And oh, okay, well, I guess that's all of them? You know, I still remember the first touch phone I got. This was back when touch was literally just being introduced. And I think it was like an LG chocolate or something along those lines. It had 3 buttons on the front. And it was touch and it was awful. But my God, dude, you could touch the screen and it would respond. And man, the innovation to think about a phone where you could touch the screen and it freaking worked, dude. Bro, I still remember the feeling, and it is ridiculous how innovative it just felt. And we haven't had anything since then. Like, oh, what? You can fit 3 cameras into a phone. I would like to turn your attention to the Samsung A17, which again, for all intents and purposes, is a good phone. However, Samsung decided to fit 3 cameras into this phone. Now, you might think that for a budget phone, and the A models are very much budget phones, you would think, well, that's a ballsy move, Samsung. How could you afford it? The truth is that they couldn't. And the third of these cameras, which is what you'd expect, you'd expect the wide frame, you'd expect the normal one, you'd expect the macro. The macro sucks. Like, if I was to take a photo of my table, dude, with the macro camera, it already there, it sucks. And you can see how I'm not far away from my table. So they've obviously compromised that to then give you other features on the phone, like decent RAM, whatever. But again, you've done nothing different. It's the exact same phone that you've just regurgitated this year. And that's not me taking a dig at Samsung's A models. It's me taking a dig at big tech in general. Nothing feels new anymore. People in the tech industry, I know they like to dog a lot on like Q-Tech and how they, got bought by HTC or whatever. But again, at least they tried something, dude. Like back then you had, this was the era of phones that were PDAs as well. Like this was the introduction of Windows Mobile, and that's obviously what Q-Tech went on. Then when HTC came to the fore, they sort of took that and then also built their own stuff, right? It just felt so different, man. It felt like phones had a purpose. Now they're just there, and they're all the same, and they all cost an exorbitant amount of money that you can only pay for if you either have that money cash, which very few do, or if you go for a cheaper option, or you get on a payment plan with your carrier where in some cases the phone is locked to that carrier until a year has passed. In other cases, you're paying off your firstborn child and a left arm just for the joy of using a phone that looks like all the other phones on the market and that you realistically didn't need, but your FOMO made you think you did. And now you're stuck in the loop again of paying money to a company that you don't care about for a phone that you don't care about for another 36 months. And I don't just want to talk about phones. I realize I've talked about phones a lot now. Cars, I think, also come to mind a little bit, right? Because some of the new cars now, like if you look at the really new models, they all have to have this big flashy iPad that takes you 30 steps to just turn on the AC. And you can't really use it because obviously it's a tablet and you're driving a car. So you'd have to pull over. In some cases, they've even made it so that you can't use it while driving. You can't use your car while driving your car. Which again, for basic features, I think is ridiculous. I mean, if you're talking about, oh, but you shouldn't type in a GPS address while driving. I get that, right? That's fair, that's fine, that's safe. I think you're boring, but that's besides the point. But if we're talking about like having to tap 30 buttons or like use voice commands to, hey, could you set the thermostat to 20, please? I just don't get it. Why do we need that? And the truth is that it's because it's actually cheaper to make because you're just reusing the software and those screens don't really cost much. Compared to making the tactiles and the buttons and the engineering that goes behind all of that, that's actually more expensive an option than the luxury that you get in newer cars now.
The thing about buttons is that while they seem like the most basic of tech, they're now actually more expensive than screens to manufacture at scale when you think about the material, the mechanism, the wiring, and even the complexity of designing a dashboard to account for different options being available on certain trims or in certain international markets.
I'm not gonna lie, some of those features are cool, right? They're cool, they're hip, but it just feels like no one asked for this. Who asked for cars where the car drives itself? Or where you can tell your car to roll down the passenger seat window on the left side? Why is that necessary? Just give me the button, man. Like, look, I'm saying this as a brokey, right? And I know, I might be kind of unking it up at this point, at the ripe age of 28. But I still know some words, And I drive an Opel from 2001. And dude, I love this car. Like, it cost me less than my rent is per month. Everything in it is tactile. Everything in it is a button I can press. I know exactly where to press, and I know exactly when to press it and for how long to press it. I know which handles to slide, and it just works. And sure, is it slow? Slower than what? Slower than Gary delivering mail to SpongeBob? No, he never delivered mail to SpongeBob. Slower than Chick-fil-A opening up on a Monday morning? Oh, I got it. Slower than the time it takes you to finish this video. Because yeah, it's a long one, and I do sort of apologize for that. But at the same time, this is my YouTube channel, and I really like having you around, dude. But you gotta start doing something. Like hitting subscribe down below and giving me a like if you enjoyed this video so far. But yeah, the cool thing about my car being slow, no speeding tickets. The one speeding ticket I got, I was driving my dad's car, and I got zapped by the little cameras they got there. And that was a pretty expensive fine. But aside from that, nothing. It's nice. It works. It's small, but it gets the job done, which I think a lot of people can relate to. Haha. You know, the last thing I do want to mention in this video is logos, because logos for me used to mean something. Like, you used to be able to feel certain brands shine through their logos. You used to be able to look at a logo and go, oh yeah, no, that's MSN, and that's Yahoo with their smiley face. But now everything has to be lowercase, and everything has to be boring, and everything has to be careful. Why don't we go with not so risque? You know, because again, you can't have a logo be offensive, and we all know that a smiley face is offensive, and a green person instead of a blue butterfly is also offensive. And I don't really like the way Silicon Valley's headed when it comes to this stuff, man. Because the logos all look the same. They all look boring. They're all lowercase. They're all the same. Notice how I said the same there twice? Yeah, that's kind of like a joke. I used to be a big MSN guy back in the day. You know, like just the little nudge feature, being able to see these big emoticons come to life. You could have all these cool features inside of like a nice enclosed app that worked on your PC and only on your PC. And you could have two versions of it, because if you were a nerd like me, you for some reason had the Windows Messenger as well as the MSN Messenger. And you liked the aesthetic of the Windows Messenger a bit more because it felt more retro, even though you were like 8 years old at the time. What do we have now? Every chat app you can think of, every IM app you can think of, wallpapers, voice notes, messages, images. Maybe some of them will have a cool quirky font. Oh yeah, read receipts, of course. That's it. They're all the same. Signal, WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, Twitter messages. It's all the same. It's all the same. Even Telegram is the same. Telegram feels slightly different because of their little airport-y notification sound whenever something comes up. But aside from that, it's all the same. They give you this like illusion that you can customize stuff, but realistically, not a single one of them has any feature that the others don't have. And it is so sad to see. So I guess that's it for this one. I'm gonna take my hat off here to you, my guy, and also to Steve as well. Don't forget Steve. So, if you enjoyed this video, man, subscribe for Steve, subscribe for me, subscribe for coffee and whatever else you like, and like the video if you like coffee and if you also enjoyed this video. And if you didn't like it for some reason, dislike it and tell me how boring it was to listen to me talk about stuff I experienced 15 years ago. And maybe next time I'll make it a little bit more fun. I don't know. That's it for this time. Thank you for watching. I've been Omar Hawwash. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I do post stuff on other social medias in the meantime. I just did a podcast episode with my good friend Diego Larain, so if you like to see me talk about football, that's where you can see that, and I'll be leaving a link to it either up here, probably not as a card because I can't do that yet, but definitely in the description down below. Follow me on social media if you want to keep up with my life aside from these videos. And it took me a long time to write this video, by the way. It took me a really long time to like write it and record it because I really wanted to look at the videos I've made up until now and see where I kind of went wrong, because the retention on them has been far from great. And I'm trying to figure out exactly why that is. So if you've come across this video and you're like, well, that was fun compared to his previous ones, let me know what made this one specifically more fun for you, more engaging, whatever you may believe it to be, and I will certainly take that into account. Thank you for watching. Have a great rest of your day. I gotta pick up a call on my Nokia, and I'll see you next time. Ciao.